Hi, welcome to this reading of chapter 2 of My Story. And I call this chapter Getting Started, Plans and Sin. Full of enthusiasm, I threw myself into catching up with everyone else. After all, at 66 years old, I had a lot of catching up to do. I started out by downloading the Bible onto my mobile phone and started to read the Bible in a year. As it turned out, that wasn't my best idea, as it became a badge of honour for me, as I was determined to complete it as quickly as possible. The good thing that was that although I was really reading the Bible as a storybook without really pausing to understand what the scriptures were saying, I had loads of questions for Carol when she arrived home from work. So instead of relaxing after a hard day's work, she had to answer all of my queries. And I'm sure she used to dread what I was going to ask her. I'm also sure that God knew what he was doing putting us two together, given my thirst for knowledge and her love of the Lord. People started saying to me that now I was saved, I should share my testimony. Now it may just be me as a new Christian, but I found all the jargon and phrases spoken by people in church just a little baffling. For instance, just a couple of simple examples like, why don't you give your testimony? I thought that was some sort of ceremony that new Christians went through, or another thing that people said, what ministry are you interested in? In my naivety, I thought, I've only just become a Christian. I don't want to be a vicar. Now things would have been easier for me if someone had just said, tell me, Graham, how did you become a Christian? Or how would you like to help out around the church? As I say, it might just be me, but when someone is a new Christian, the rest of us should try to use easily understood language. Anyway, it got me to thinking about my story. As far as I could see, I didn't have a story that anybody would be interested in. I wasn't a drug addict rescued from the gutter by Jesus, or, as I had heard, a prisoner who had given his life to Jesus in his cell. My story just consisted of I wanted to find out about Jesus, so I went along to church. On my first visit, God showed me all about temptation and gave me an example involving a slice of millionaire's shortcake. On my second visit, I gave my life to the Lord. Now, much later in my walk, I can see that it was indeed part of a story well worth telling. As I've said, at the time I did not think that I had a story to tell. What is more, at the age of 66, I thought that although I'd given my life to Christ, and I was thrilled about that, any plan that the Lord had for me, I'd mucked up a long time ago. I'd made too many wrong choices, gone down too many wrong roads for there still to be a plan intact. Although I would have liked for God to have had a plan for me, I was still spending time in the Word. I enjoyed reading and watching and listening to as many teachings that I could. Then one day the pastor started preaching on a passage or a verse in the Bible, and that was Jeremiah 29 verse 11. He asked everyone to read the scripture out loud, so I did. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. The pastor then asked us to read it quietly to ourselves. So once again I read it out, but this time to myself. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. He then asked, did anyone notice the S on the end of the word plan? Wow, I suddenly realised that there was more than one plan. He had multiple plans for me. This opened possibilities that previously were not there. I sometimes think I'm not like other people. An example of this is an obsession I had with sin, or rather trying to work out what sin is. I'd said the salvation prayer and I knew for sure that I was saved. However, I still wasn't sure what I had to do if I remembered some sin committed long ago, or what if I sin now? I even started thinking that some sins are so great that surely God couldn't forgive them. Are some sins worse than others? I spent lots of time asking God for answers. I think God was getting a bit fed up of this, and he spoke to me clearly and in a language that I understood. In my 20s, I was a professional ballroom dancer. In fact, my sister Andrea and I were the youngest professional dancers in the UK. So one day, while I was pondering on sin and its implication for my salvation, God said to me, "Sin is like ballroom dancing." I immediately thought, oh no, ballroom dancing is a sin. He then said, "If you and I were dancing together and you stepped on my toes, would you say sorry?" I said, "Of course I would." He continued, "Then I would forgive you. But I would then say to you, we will try that step again. But this time you will do your very best not to step on my toes again." My debate about sin was over. God's explanation was simple, to the point, and quite profound. Thank you for listening to this, the second chapter of my story, and I hope to see you again when I read chapter 3. Thank you once more, and God bless.